All right, so we are in part 62 of the life of Jesus. We're going back through the Sermon on the Mount, looking at what we're calling Christ-like conversations, where we're going to actually, as a disciple of Jesus, attempt to actually talk like Jesus or talk in such a way that we keep his commands. All right, so let's look at this one passage. This is Matthew 5:23-26. Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, there remember that your brother or sister has something against you. Leave your gift there in front of the altar. Okay, so what do we know about this part? And let me finish in a second. First, go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Okay, what do we catch from that? What do you need to do first?
Apologize.
Yeah, if you need to apologize, apologize. Right? If you need to apologize, apologize. Okay, thank you. Beth got that profile. Good job. All right.
And it's on us. It's on us. That's what you stress.
Yeah, that's the big point. If you're the disciple of Jesus,
Yeah, don't wait for them.
until they prove that they're the more mature disciple of Jesus,
It's on you.
yes. Right. All right, so settle matters quickly with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. What did we take away from that?
Don't let it go to court.
Right, don't let it escalate.
Yeah.
Right, don't let it escalate. Because the more it escalates, what?
Worse it gets.
Right. The higher cost there is to it. So now, there's two big things you think about when you realize you're going into these conversations. What are those two big things that you kind of think about? What's one of them?
What was it saying?
Yeah, safety and purpose. Right, safety. Now, so what do you think about when it's safety? What are you thinking about? The premise is that if someone feels safe, they will talk to you about anything, and or they will listen to you talk about anything. Right? The reason people don't want to listen to you or don't want to talk to you or want to argue with you is they don't feel safe in the conversation with you. Right? And that goes for even if it's someone who is your superior. Even your superior can feel unsafe in a conversation with you, right? It's not necessarily someone who is below you or equal to you. It may be like your boss. If your boss wants to argue with you and yells at you, it's because he feels unsafe in conversation with you too, right? So now how do we recognize safety is at risk in the conversation?
Somebody is getting anxious.
Okay,
Or
Yelling,
silent.
backing off.
yeah,
something.
yeah. Silence or violence, fight or flight, right? Attack or defend, right? And so now, who might it be that's doing that?
Me,
Might be me, might be who else?
the person you're
The other
talking
person, or
to, both of you.
both. Now that's important to remember because you might feel unsafe and your voice might be going up and they might be oblivious. Right? They feel safe in the conversation. You're the one that feels unsafe in the conversation.
And
Or,
if that happens, you probably don't need to be talking to people yet.
right, yeah, you need to stop and think. The big thing is when it happens, stop and think. And it might take a minute, you might need to walk away and
That's
think
right.
about it.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So you catch yourself, you catch your blood pressure going up, you catch your voice going up, or you catch yourself clamming up, right? You know that safety is at risk and you don't feel safe. The other side is you catch them, you catch their voice going up, or you catch their mouth clamping up, or you catch their blood pressure, or you catch their nervousness, their anxiousness, right? They don't feel safe in the conversation. And then sometimes you catch both. Okay? So you know you're in one of these conversations when you tell it. How many people over the last week realized you were in one of these conversations? Really? You didn't have one? I had like 4 last night.
Really?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Because of my job, because of the situation of my job, I had at least 4 last night, maybe more.
How'd it go?
I'm getting better at it. I'm getting a whole lot better at it. I use this every day. I'm using this. I'm really trying to work on this. Anybody else in the last week feel like they recognized they were in one of these conversations? You might not have done the right thing, but did you recognize you were in one of them? Really?
Yeah. It's having that discernment ahead of time, and you don't have to wait until you start getting emotionally it's having that wisdom and discretion and that patience that you only go so far, and then it frees you up. You don't have to get your point across all at once. It's an ongoing series of conversations. So yes.
So the other thing we have to realize is what? What was the other big thing? Purpose. Now, we as disciples of Jesus have this big, giant, overall arching purpose. What is it? To bring glory to God by me being reconformed to the image of God that I was created to be, and by possibly me helping them be reconformed to the image of God that they were originally created to be. Right? Now, I've got that in my brain, but is that the big purpose I'm going to tackle right away? No. There's a bunch of little bitty, not little bitty, but there's a bunch of smaller conversations that probably need to be had first before we ever get to that big conversation. Like me and Todd can have that big conversation because me and Todd know each other for 30 years now. Right? And me and Todd feel safe in the conversation. One of the things I've realized is I can't say things around some people that I can say around Todd because me and Todd don't get offended at anything we say to each other. Right? Because we've known each other for 30 years. We feel safe around each other in conversations. We can pretty much say anything we want to the other one, and the other one feels fine. Right? So I can have a conversation with him about what it means to be reconformed to the image of God that we're originally created to be. But you're not going to have that conversation right off the cuff with most people, because most people, there's some issues you got to work through first before you can have that conversation with them. Right? So we understand that that's our big overall arching purpose. But yeah.
Been thinking about one good way to, I guess, reel somebody into it.
Yeah.
Is kind of do the third party thing, like me and you were talking, but close enough to where Stan can hear us.
Right.
And you pull some people in that way.
That actually happens when he's over the flea market. It happens.
The other vendors,
Yeah.
I tend to get a little loud, not upset. I don't think emotional, but they listen.
Right.
Yeah,
People
that's
And then I've had it come up to me.
And another thing they'll notice is people not involved in the conversation will notice how you're handling the conversation.
Yes.
So it will make them feel safe.
Right.
Right. Just seeing you be able to handle that conversation. They'll feel safe to approach you.
They listen to tone and they watch body language. The Lord created us in a wonderful way, and that's what we could watch with others.
Right.
That's why it's much better in person than on Facebook or other social media or even the phone. Now, the phone you can discern tone of voice, but you can
miss a lot.
pause and you just say, well, okay, maybe am I pushing a little too far? Clarify what is your now understanding? Because we need to have crucial conversations. This is not about sports or politics. This is about important matters. But it's why I call a timeout sometimes. You just say, listen, why don't we both think about this and get back to it, because I feel, like, and that's okay. Yeah, that's,
okay.
They do that in sports all the time. Time out,
Right.
and then it calms the players down.
Right.
And that's just for a game. And we're
Right.
dealing with.
Right. Now, so this is important. Now, so think about your lesser purpose. Why is it important to have in mind your lesser purpose?
Well, you've got an immediate focus and then a long-term focus.
Right. And when you have that immediate focus, what does it stop you from doing? If you focus on, okay, I have this purpose in this conversation.
Keeps you from going too far.
That's
Right. It
That's
keeps you from
exactly.
changing your purpose. Because once we feel attacked, we feel threatened, we no longer feel safe, what is the danger of without our realizing, changing our purpose to? Attacking, winning, punishing, or just keeping the peace. Now, if you switch to those, how likely are you to accomplish your original purpose?
You're not.
Right. So now one of the things is, now that big grand overarching purpose is kind of easy to remember and figure out, but sometimes the smaller purpose is going to take you a second. And that's when you need to stop. If you catch blood pressure going up, you start yelling, they're yelling, stop. Just stop. You know what I mean? Really get in your mind, and this is what I'm having to tell myself over and over. Unless there is immediate danger, you probably don't need to be yelling at anybody. Or if it's something like, a child needs to immediately, immediately do what you tell them to do, right? Other than that, you generally probably don't need to be yelling at anyone. So if you're feeling the need to start yelling at someone, or they're starting to yell at you, this means that it's time to put the brakes on, stop, realize safety's at risk, realize one of the reasons safety's at risk is because the purpose is being deviated from, or the purpose hasn't been recognized to begin with. Stop and say, okay, what is my purpose in this?
Right.
And before you yell at them or before you respond to them, just stop and start thinking. And if you can't figure the purpose out, do you need to have the conversation?
Right. Or you could let them vent. If they're the one who's
Right.
getting emotional, because maybe you have hurt them in the past, maybe or they're misunderstanding you.
Right.
So just patiently and prayerfully let them vent and say, oh, I understand how you can see it that way, and I'm sorry that you even, oh, and I did that,
There's some people you don't do that to.
Well,
Like
okay,
me.
well, so we're going to again, don't get too far ahead, Sam. Don't get too far ahead. Because we're going to get to how to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to get to how to do that. Let's get through what we're at right now, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so remember, figure out what your purpose is in having the conversation, right? And it's your job as a disciple of Jesus to establish safety. Now, one of the ways we establish safety is through a mutual purpose and mutual respect. Now, what's the difference between your purpose and the mutual purpose? So you have your grand overarching purpose, but then you also have an immediate purpose.
Right.
Is your immediate purpose always going to be
No.
the same as their purpose?
No.
No. Or it may be misunderstood. You may think you have contrary purposes and you actually have the same. So you have your purpose, but they don't know your purpose. Or they may disagree with your purpose.
Right.
So you need to establish a mutual purpose.
Right.
That's the difference between purpose and mutual purpose. Your purpose is in here.
Right.
Your mutual purpose is here.
Right.
Most of the times, like in a workplace, people don't have a purpose with conversation.
No, they don't. Now, see, for me, I have to, because mine is to keep everybody on track and keep doing what they're doing and create a good, safe working, enjoyable working, not enjoyable, but productive work environment. So I have to have, in all of my conversations with people I have at work, have that purpose, even if it's because of my position. I have that purpose in my mind when I'm speaking to someone. I'm trying to say, how can I take this conversation in that direction?
And you're building a track record, a rapport, a
Right.
respect,
Yeah.
so that others will say, well, go talk to Kurt. Because,
Right. They feel safe enough to come talk to me.
And
Yeah.
so it takes time to.
Right. And it has taken time. It's taken a lot of time. All right. So let's look at this one again. So you all got that. You get that, right? Now, mutual respect. What if I have no respect for this person whatsoever?
You've got to come up with respect. 'cause you're
What's
God.
that one way I can always respect everybody?
You're God.
They're an image of God that can be redeemed, right? So if no other way I can find respect for them, I find respect for them that they are an image of God, right? You can probably find something other than that, but if all else fails, that one. So let's look at this verse, Matthew 5:33 through 37. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond that comes from the evil one. So that's a long way of saying is, don't preface what you say to mean, well, I don't really mean what I'm getting ready to say. Or because most people really don't mean what they say it, I really do mean what I'm getting ready to say. You ever notice that we speak that way? Because most people really don't mean what they say. If you're going to say something outlandish, you're going to say, yeah, I'm just kind of fooling around here, but, or, hey, usually I'm fooling around, but this time I'm not fooling around. I really do mean this.
Yes,
Yeah, because we speak in so non-literal terms
dance around, we spin around.
Right. Jesus says don't do it.
Right. Be straightforward.
Straightforward, literal. Right? Now this is a hard one because human culture is built on not being literal, isn't it?
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Right. But now here's the
how
thing.
you do it, too.
But now you got to find the way to be literal
And be effective.
and not be where they don't want to hear, and they'll still feel safe with you being
Yeah, me
literal.
too. I hear you.
Right?
The problem.
Now let's ask this question. Okay, so we got that. We got that you're creating safety, that you have a purpose, that you're creating a mutual purpose between the two of you, that you need to have mutual respect between the two of you, right? Now let me get to where we're at. Okay. So how to establish a mutual purpose and mutual respect in our Christ-like conversations, right? To create mutual purpose, let's create. One, commit to a mutual purpose. Why do you need to commit to it?
It helps.
Stay on point.
Right, because it's difficult. If you don't make a commitment, as soon as it gets difficult, what are you going to do?
Someone's gonna.
You're going to back away, or you're going to go back yelling at them. So you need to commit to creating that mutual purpose. All right, and the next thing is recognize the purpose behind strategies. Do y'all remember me telling you the difference between strategies and purposes? What was the difference?
Strategy is how you get to your purpose.
Right. Now, what might we do?
So you
We-
have a purpose, but it's really a strategy.
Right. We may be calling our purpose really our strategy, right? And we may actually have the same purpose, but we're trying to accomplish it by two different strategies. And we need to figure that out. Right? Because we need to figure that out because, one, if we figure out we actually have the same purpose, well, that helps a lot. Two, if we don't have the same purpose, what do we need to do? That's number three, invent a mutual purpose. I may say, I'm going to have to come to the realization that I may not get my purpose. And you're going to come to the realization that you're not going to get your purpose, but for the betterment of both of us, we come up with a third purpose that satisfies what we need to get done.
Right. And when I first read invent, it's almost like you're pulling it out of the air to manipulate. But as you explained last week, maybe it was buying a car or saving
Right.
money. How can we save on the bill? You really have a mutual purpose. You're not really inventing. You're just trying to
Yeah.
get there beyond the different strategies.
Right. And it's compromise, really. Okay, and then, so let's say you do come up with your mutual purpose. It just happens, right?
Oh, you got to work at it.
Right, this is so you brainstorm a new strategy. Okay, so I wanted to do it this way, you wanted to do this way. We're not going to both get to do this way, but we agree we actually need to do this, but now we need to decide how we're going to agree to do this. You see how much work this is?
Oh my, yeah, at time.
Right? And time. One is patience. One is patience on this. Patience. Because this takes a lot of re-engaging your brain where you're normally used to just running on with how you normally act. A big thing about this is why the whole recognizing that safety is at risk, stop, slow down. If somebody's yelling, stop, slow down. If somebody's clamming up, stop, slow down. Right? Because safety is at risk and you need to establish safety. And you need to do that by establishing a mutual purpose. You know what your purpose is. You don't know what their purpose is, but you need to find out the same purpose, different purpose. What's the strategies? Come up with a new purpose. Develop a new strategy to accomplish that new purpose. Right? Okay. So commit to seeking a mutual purpose. So here's the thing: when you're talking about committing or seeking to commit a mutual purpose. Do others believe that I care about their goals, interests, and goals in this conversation?
That's a big one.
Right. Am I just trying to push my purpose through, or am I actually listening to them about what they were actually trying to do? You see what I mean? Okay. So we talked about the difference between recognizing the difference between purposes and strategies. Okay. Now here's the question. So inventing a mutual purpose. If we talked about that. Brainstorm, we talk about that. Okay, so creating mutual respect. Right? Does that person really believe that I respect them? Am I acting in such a way that if I was that other person, I would believe that I respect them? I mean, really ask yourself that. If I was on the other side of this conversation, would I feel like the person talking to me respects me? You see, I mean, really, put yourself in their shoes. Right?
Why not?
Right. And so here's what Jesus says about that. Do not judge, or you too will be judged. Right? Why does somebody feel like they're being disrespected? Because they feel like you've made a judgment call against them, an unfair judgment call against them. That you've decided something about them that they feel is not true.
And as Jesus said, according to appearance, don't judge according
Right.
to appearance, because things are not always
Right.
what they appear to
Right.
be.
And yeah, and next week we're gonna get more into that. We're gonna start on that this week. We're gonna get more into that next week. Okay? So now what happens then if I am coming across like I have no respect for you because I've judged you?
Boy,
Yeah. Are they gonna have any respect for me?
No.
Right. So this is what Jesus says. Do not judge, or you too will be judged.
Right.
If you demonstrate a lack of respect, they're going to return fire with a lack of respect. Right? Okay. For the same way you judge others, for in other words, the same way I show a lack of respect for others, you too will be judged. They'll show a lack of respect for me. Right? If I come across like I have no respect for you, you're going to come back across like you have no respect for me. Because you're going to lose respect for me because I show no respect for you. Right? Okay. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. That's what we just said. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own? Whenever I'm yelling at you, all I'm talking about is what's wrong with you. Or whenever I won't talk to you, all I'm demonstrating is that I think there's something wrong with you. And there's nothing wrong with me. Right. Well, who do I need to start with? Me.
Yeah, right.
Who, you know, this conversation it's unsafe because either they're yelling, I'm yelling, or they're clamming up and I'm clamming up. And who do I first need to check and see if they made the conversation unsafe? Me. Right? Check with me first. Take the plank out of my own eye. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye? In other words, let me tell you what's wrong with you. Right? And he's over there sitting there, you're telling me what's wrong with you, and then when you just wait till I get to tell you what's wrong with you. Right? That's exactly what's going on. When all the time there's a plank in your own eye, you hypocrite, first take out the plank of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck of your brother's. In other words, this conversation is turning unsafe. Let's figure out what I'm doing wrong first. Let's fix what I'm doing wrong first, so that you see that I do, at least, at bare minimum, respect you as an image bearer of God, and I'm interested in having a conversation with you.
Amen.
A constructive, Christ-like conversation with you. Okay, here. Jesus said again, you've heard, let me look at this one again. So this, I ain't going to read that one again because we just read it, but this is the one about be straightforward in the way you speak. So ask yourself this question, okay? Ask yourself this question. Why would we not give a direct yes or no answer? Why do we speak in circles?
Avoidance.
Avoidance. We either don't want them to know what we got going on,
Or you don't want to tell the truth.
Because they can't handle it.
right? Or maybe you a little shady.
Yeah. That's right.
Let's just be honest.
That's right.
The only reason not to give straightforward, literal yes or no answers is because we're trying to hide something. Or we're trying to punish them by not giving all of our information.
Or there's some lack of character. You referred to Todd in 30 years. There's
Yeah.
other people who've known each other for 40 years, and they can't even talk about the weather without one getting offended.
Right.
And it reveals a lack of character.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's something wrong. If you can't be straightforward and honest in the way you speak with somebody, there's something wrong, and who do you need to start with
Yeah.
the something wrong?
Right.
What's that?
Me.
Stan, me and Curtis had to pick up lots of rocks when we was younger, and I was always told that built character.
Yeah. Get out and do this. I carry 5-gallon buckets of water.
Yeah.
I threaten to make my kids do that all the time.
But then it says
Yes,
you can see clearly whether it's a speck or a log.
Right.
And that's the blessing. It says to deal with.
Right.
the
So,
other.
yeah. So I don't know if y'all don't have a paper, but the ones you got on paper, we've got these circles here. Okay, here's the thing. There's what I know, there's what you know, and then what is there? What we know.
The circles are supposed to be one on top of the
Right, as much as possible. Because here's the thing that has, what happens in the conversation, and there's different variations, different varieties of this. We're having a conversation, and I'm talking to you like you know what I know.
Yeah.
Right? I'm yelling at you because you aren't doing what you need to be doing, but if I ever stopped and thought, wait, you don't know what I know. Right? How would you know to do what I'm asking you to do when you don't know what I know? Right? I yell at you like you know it. Now, there's another version of that where I hold back what I know.
It's not cheating.
Do you see what I mean? So there's different variations of this. The other side of that is you. You hold back what you on the other side are holding back what you know, or you are yelling at me because I don't know what you want to know. Right? The more this middle thing increases, right, the better the conversation.
Sure.
Right? Is this not true? So what, now here's the thing. This is called the shared pool of meaning. Is what it's called, right? Here's the thing. We've got to make it safe to put information in there.
Even if it's not accurate. It can be-
Right, right. Because even if it's not accurate, because you may be believing something that's not accurate, or I may be believing something's not accurate, and until we share that with one another, you're not going to find out what you believe is not accurate, or I'm not going to find out what I believe is not accurate.
That's right.
So we've got to make it safe for both of us to put information and share the information between the two of us. Right? But people only do it when they feel sick. Now, again, there's both withholding information from it. Now, there's another bad thing you can do, which I am very guilty of, which is shove information into it.
It's not shared. It's your.
Right. Without making you feel safe
It's
first.
not received.
Right. Because me shoving information into it makes you feel unsafe. Right? What we want to do is create this safe environment, this safe conversation where I can share. What's it? What you saying?
Or if you think that you're making your point, but the other person still seems confused, so you just keep reiterating your point, but in different ways. Like, they may just not even understand the point.
Right. Yeah. And part of it is to understand, see frustration in them and go, wait a minute.
That's right.
Maybe I need to stop, ask a different question. I need to
Or
something.
listen to them.
Yeah, listen to them. And even if I think their answer is stupid,
Right. Let,
right? Do you see how creating this safe? Why? Again, go back to remember my purpose. If I've got to go through this process to accomplish my purpose. So the question is, do I really feel that purpose is worth going through this conversation or not? Because if I don't think the purpose is worth going through this conversation, it's not worth yelling at them either. Do you see what I mean? Because yelling ain't going to accomplish it either. I'm just yelling for whose benefit.
yours.
Yeah.
I think of the old King James verse, the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God, or the probably newer translations, when a man gets angry, it's not going to have God's blessing to affect a good conversation. You're only, in other words,
Right.
that's just the law of God. You're going to get angry and push on, and you want God's blessing and righteousness there? Forget that. I mean, why should we even continue down that?
Right. See, that's the right there. We've got to learn that. So as we're doing this, okay. So like I said, let's take it a little more than a week. In the last month, have you recognized you're being in one of these conversations? Yeah. Okay. Did you recognize you were in the conversation at the time, but didn't know what to do?
Just a few, broad, vague comments.
Right. But you knew there could be more done.
Yeah.
Is it starting to make sense now that what the more that can be done is?
Especially if we're mutual disciples. That's the wonderful
Yeah.
potential about this whole relational dynamic small group thing. But
Yeah, there's no reason not to do this between two disciples of Jesus. There's really no reason
we
not to
should do it
whatsoever.
the best.
Yeah, and we really, right, and not only that, we should do one, because here's what will happen is, if we get to where we can do it in between the other, what Todd was talking about before, people are going to see it.
Right.
Bystanders will be like, man.
Other relatives.
Yeah, relatives, but you know,
Neighbors.
yeah, you think about that before you're in the family gathering, and we used to yell at each other,
Yeah.
and somebody sitting there looking at it going, they don't yell at each other like they used to.
That's right.
In fact, that's the most productive I have ever seen two human beings work through a disagreement.
That's right.
I mean, you know, really seriously, this is what they should be seeing out of us.
Amen.
Or when we used to yell at them, or when we used to clam up to them, we stop and we really engage in them conversation. Right? We really. I'm gonna give you a trick. I'm gonna give you a little trick. What color are somebody's eyes?
Depends on what color you see.
Well, but when you're having a conversation, when you realize you're in this conversation, you want to know a way to stop. What color are their eyes? Because now, what do you have to do?
Focus.
You have to stop, focus, and look them in their eyes. And not only that, it's very humanizing. How often do you really notice the color of somebody's eyes?
Are we talking about men or women?
Whoever. Actually, I know what you're saying. I get you. But I get your point. But okay, let's talk about men. Let's make that point. Men, how often do you notice the color of another man's eyes?
Don't.
You don't.
No.
You don't. But stop. When you realize you're in one of these conversations, stop and ask yourself ask questions. What's the color of their eyes? Because now you've got to look them in the eyes. Right? And another thing is, when you look at their eyes, they become very, very human. Right? And when they become human to you, what do they become to you? An image bearer of God.
Right.
Right? You get one of these conversations, stop and ask yourself, what's the color of their eyes? And don't say another word until you've looked and figured it out. Right? If you want a way to put the brakes on, there's a way to put the brakes on. If you want a way to figure out, to say, how can I respect this person as a human being, as an image bearer of God, there's a way to do it. Right? To try that and do it. Because I've tried it. I've noticed some people's, I never knew what color their eyes were before. People I've known for a while, I never knew what color their eyes were before. Right? And when I looked at them and I looked them in the eyes, when I slowed down, I stopped, I looked them in the eyes. You know, I'll tell you, you will see a value of another human being in their eyes in a way you won't see them if you're mad. Right? Or you see them as a mad person. When you stop, you look them in the eyes and you think, man, that's a human being. You know what? Going back to, it's a good way. It also, what's another thing it'll remind you of? Take the plank out of my eye before I go pull the sawdust out of their eye.
That's a good point. Very good point.
Right? So we're going to close on that one actually. But so as you go forward, try to think these things. So you remember the big thing, and I'm glad y'all got these two big things: safety and purpose. Establishing safety, figuring out my purpose. Now, once I figure out my purpose, what's the next thing I need to figure out with them?
What's their purpose?
Yeah, and find out, and then we got to create what? A mutual purpose, right? Create that mutual purpose. First thing we'll have to do is we're going to have to commit to doing it. Right? Make a commitment to do it. Right? And this is where, if I don't feel like making a commitment to do it, stop. Look them in the eyes. See an image bearer of God. Right? Think, you know what? Take the plank out of my eye before their eye. Okay, because here's a question. Why would I not want to commit to do this? What might come up in this when we have this conversation? I might be wrong.
That's right.
Might have to go correct some things.
They might be more right about something than I realized they were right about something. They might have a legitimate reason for doing what they're doing. So I'm going to commit to creating a purpose, even if I don't feel like it, because it's the Christ-like thing to do. Right? I'm going to recognize that we might actually have the same purpose and we might just have different strategies. Right? So we're going to work through that and maybe ask the question of, you know, what is it that you really are trying to accomplish? Because I've thought about this, something I wish I knew. So next time I talk to an atheist, I like to argue with atheists, I really do. But here's the thing, they like to argue with me too. Is that, what a value is that? Right, so one of the things I want to ask is, what's your purpose? Do you really want to know what I believe and why I believe it? Or do you just want to make fun of me?
Right, because dialogue is free flow of meaning.
Right.
Not of.
Right, and that's the thing. And if they just want to argue with me, there's no reason for me to have that conversation. And I know then I can stop the conversation and say, hey, you know, what's your purpose in having this conversation? Because if it's just to attack me and attack what I believe, you know, that's just not a conversation I want to have. But if you would like to have a conversation about, you know, understanding what I believe and why I believe it, that's a conversation I'd like to have with you. Do you see what I mean? Slow it down. Find out what my purpose is. What's the purpose behind this conversation? Because if I start arguing back with them, what's my purpose? Just to argue. You see what I mean? It accomplishes nothing. So invent a mutual purpose. Can we come up with, if we don't have the same purpose, can we come up with a new purpose? Then just because we came up with a purpose don't mean the purpose is getting done. Now we've got to figure out how we're going to work together to accomplish that purpose, right? Okay, and so one of the things that we do, the way to do this is, what we're going to do is, I'm going to realize that there's what I know, there's what you know, but we really can't have a really good conversation and really achieve a purpose until we increase what we both know. Right? And for us to be able to, for you to feel free to add to that, you're going to have to feel safe to add to that, right? For you to be able to listen to what I would like to add to that, you're going to have to feel safe to listen to what I would like to add to that.
It's on us.
And
to
then,
go the
yes,
extra mile.
and it's on us again. It's on us as a disciple of Jesus. It's on us. This starting to make sense?
Oh,
Okay.
when I saw part of Overcomer last night, you will love, if you haven't seen it, or if you have seen it, go back to the scene where the main actor, the black man, you know.
I haven't seen it. I don't know.
Well, his daughter, he went into drugs and left him for it hurt her. She went into silence as her manner of life. The grandmother who raised her went into violence, emotional, bitterness. And so when they finally start making contact again, it's what they knew 15 years ago and what he knows, getting right with God, but it took him time. But he is a perfect illustration of how to diffuse it, both the silence and the violence.
Right.
If you get it just for that purpose,
Right.
and skim to that scene, you'll understand just what I mean.
Right. So y'all understanding about how this is. Now we're gonna go to it. We're gonna have really next. We're gonna start getting into some really nitty gritty next week. I think you got the general overlay, right? Everybody got the general overlay. We're gonna get into some more nitty gritty next week about how do I get to, what are the rules really for me adding to that pool of shared knowledge, and what do I want from that person? Because if they're not sharing, what do I need to ask them to get them to share? What specifically do I want them to share
Right.
to the shared pool of knowledge? What do I want to put in the shared knowledge? What do I want to get them to put into it? Does that make sense? To get this conversation rolling and get it where we need to be going. Is this everybody kind of?
It's got wonderful potential.
Oh man, this is great stuff. Like I said, I'm not really deep in it with a lot of people, but just using the surface version of it.
Yeah.
Just the surface version of it. Like I said, I had 4 or 5 of these conversations last night. They weren't real deep, but I had to hit the surface version of it. You know, to where it's like, okay, so I'm sorry, you know.
You're building bridges,
Yeah.
establishing rapport, and that's.
Yeah, it's what we got to do. All right, so let's stand up. Let's close in prayer.